Pete DeMarco is our next speaker. He's the Executive Vice President of Advocacy and Research for the IAPMO Group. His responsibilities include oversight of IAPMO's Government Relations Department, water efficiency and green building initiatives, standards development activities, domestic and international plumbing programs, industry outreach program and development of research projects relating to water efficiency. He's the founder of the Plumbing Efficiency Research Coalition. He's acted as lead facilitator for the American National Standards Institute's Energy Efficiency Standardization Coordination Collaborative. There must be a decent-sized acronym for that one, Pete. Pete co-chaired the steering committee for water efficient products, and he currently serves as chair of the Alliance for Water Efficiency. He's speaking to us today on the topic advocating for water efficiency, safety and research, how to discuss the needs and concerns that our stakeholders have with policymakers, and how to develop public-private sector partnerships to address them. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you, everybody, and really appreciate you all coming here for the last day of this excellent conference. You know, I'm wrapping up a kind of a 6-day stretch of presentations, having attended the CIB W62 water supply and drainage conference that preceded this one here in for WPC. And so I'm going through 6 days now of PowerPoint slides, and I'm glad that it's final for me, but you guys have been through 3 of them yourself. I hope you can keep up the energy for our last series of speakers. But what a wonderful conference this has been, so I'm glad you're all here. I would like to call your attention. Some of you have a little box in front of you with a small tap or faucet. What this is to provide information for the next CIB, which is going to be in Taiwan. So if there's a QR little symbol there that you can scan, give you some additional information on that. It's a wonderful symposium, and you'll hear a lot from the universities that are conducting research. It's led by Dr. Lin Jack, who's going to be our speaker later this morning. As far as this presentation is concerned, it's a little bit different, even for me. I don't have a specific topic to discuss with you today, but rather going to touch on a number of different aspects, and many of them you've heard already. It's interesting that we'll be covering some of the same issues that we heard about earlier in this conference. And I want to be clear, this isn't going to be a how-to advocate thing, because advocacy is unique for every application, for every instance, for who you're talking to, the situations, who your partners are. Rather, what this discussion is trying to communicate is sharing some of the best practices that have been successful for us at IAPMO. And maybe perhaps there's a gleam of information that you might find useful. I'd also be interested in hearing from you all in your advocacy work on aspects that were successful to you. Perhaps we can share some information. So let's just, in the spirit of collaboration, just make this a give and take thing. And I'll be out in the hallways, of course, and later this morning, and have any ideas you'd like to go over, then please come up and speak with me. So here's our discussion outline. As you see, I've characterized a few of our more pressing issues that we're all faced with as the plumbing industry. We'll start discussing some of our shared global water and plumbing challenges, and then move into some discussions on some new tools we can put in our toolbox in terms of how to address some of those issues and strengthen our industry. Keep an eye out along the way. I think I've got the little 4 pillars of plumbing logos interspersed on all the slides. I think they all make an appearance throughout the presentation, so keep a sharp eye out for those, because this, as we talk about advocacy, it really covers all of these aspects. You know, advocacy is one of those words that can be used as both a verb and a noun. And as I mentioned, I hope this presentation could actually be a call to action for everybody here, especially the younger folks in the audience. You're going to be in this game for a long time, and you're going to be the ones that are going to be impacted the most severely by some of these global challenges. And if this can be a little bit of a call for action for everybody to collaborate, work together, kind of move the needle in the right direction, no matter how small, then together with our combined voices, we can indeed make a difference. So as far as this is concerned, this presentation, let's consider the word advocate as a noun. The first global challenge I'd like to discuss with you is access to safe water and sanitation. In recent years, I've been fortunate and privileged to visit countries like India, South Africa, and Indonesia. And I think anyone who sees the impacts of the human condition that exists from a lack of water and sanitation can't help but want to be involved and to do what you can to be part of a solution to help improve the lives of the people in need. Clearly, this is one of the most pressing challenges, I think, that we as a plumbing community need to advocate for, especially we consider the United Nations Sustainability Goals, which will be discussed later on this morning in detail, and how they apply to water. You know, those goals now go far beyond the WASH-type programs of the past, towards delivering piped water solutions to homes and buildings, or plumbing. So the ball is squarely in our courts. And it's an awesome responsibility. As far as IAPMO or any organization, if you're going to try to work in these areas, it's great if you can get support from your government, whether at any level, or working with other NGOs that may provide funding to support these programs. And that typically comes in the form of grants. Good grant writing is a key. And if you're going to be reaching out or applying for grants, if you don't have those skills in-house, find them. They're readily available online. There's a lot of resources that will help you with grant writing. And once you get the first couple underway, you get good at it yourself. And the next time it becomes a lot easier. A lot of times those applications are quite onerous. And it can be a little bit difficult. But like I said, the first one is always the toughest. And when you get that first grant, the biggest key that I can advise to you is deliver more than you say you're going to deliver. Knock it out of the park. And when you do that, the next grant, you're competing with other organizations. Keep that in mind. So the next one is going to be more likely to come your way. Along those lines and working to provide water and sanitation, I hope you'll forgive me a little bit if I brag on our I Wish Foundation for a bit. In addition to our work in India, South Africa, and Indonesia, I Wish completed a project earlier this year in Navajo Nation in the United States. Tragically, too many people in the United States, shockingly, still live without access to clean water and sanitation. Especially true among our Native American population, and also true with other disadvantaged communities, and that's a shame. For advocacy purposes, doing some domestic-based products as part of your portfolio of work to address water and sanitation is a good idea, especially in today's political environment where there's a lot of this, if you follow the news coming out of the U.S., America first type thing, and this is not unique to the U.S. I hear similar sentiments being expressed throughout the world. So have that domestic aspect as part of your portfolio helps in your advocacy work because you can say that no matter what you're doing in addressing certain politicians or decision makers who may have that sentiment, that you're also working to address local needs in addition to working internationally, and that'll help you get all of your grants. Of course, this, under the heading of collaboration, building a strong partner network is key. In the case of I Wish, we have great partners, especially with the United Association, that help provide a stream of dedicated and knowledgeable professional volunteers that work to impress both the funders and the community in need alike. For all projects, it's also important to try to develop a push-pull relationship as part of the project. In other words, work with the local communities, work with the local government if you're doing an international program. In Indonesia, for example, we've worked not only with we got a grant from the U.S. trade association to help develop this program, but we also work with the local government, federal government in Indonesia. This creates, and we get those two entities together, it creates a push-pull effect that becomes extremely important in making the project successful. Invite the local folks to talk at events that kick off these programs, highly successful. Invite the local media, and of course, utilize social media as well. When we do, as we bring piped water sources to communities in need, we got to remember that we are going to greatly increase water consumption in that area. This can have a negative impact if there aren't adequate water supplies to meet that need. So it's very important to use products that are water efficient as available. It's important that they be available locally so that they can be repaired. Thus the need to, if you haven't yet done so, please take an opportunity to visit our IWISH booth out in the front and talk to our representatives Grant Stewart and Swathi Saralaya out there. They're wonderful folks to chat with, and they can give you more information about what IWISH has been able to accomplish in a very short period of time, and you can perhaps discuss how you may be able to partner with us or get involved as well. Switching gears a little bit now to another aspect of global challenges. This guy's coming out and hitting me here. Okay. You know, the good news is that the world is becoming increasingly water efficient. And no more, and this is true no more as it applies to indoor water use. But we've heard a lot in this conference about the unintended consequences of water efficiency and emerging issues that are compounding and complicating our efforts to become more efficient, especially in this conference where we heard how by taking steps to solve one problem, we create another. And this is very poignant in our efforts as we go through advocating for water efficiency. While water is essential for life, it's also a very efficient carrier of pathogens and can bring illness and death, of course. We heard quite a bit about that earlier as well. The fact is, water is taking much longer to travel from the point of treatment to buildings, and as a result, is entering those buildings with little or no disinfectant if water is treated where you live. And that helps, that disinfectant helps to resist pathogen growth. So if it's not in the water when it gets to the building, then certainly you're going to have more chances of problems developing in the plumbing system. In the U.S., a standard was introduced in 2015 called ASHRAE 188. It's a risk management program to address Legionella. In Great Britain, we heard about the L8 standard, and there's standards in Australia and elsewhere to address risk mitigation from Legionella as well. And it's important that we advocate for these standards. Those standards are out there now, but getting those standards done is the easy part. Getting the water teams engaged and developed in buildings and the funding to make sure that this happens. Getting the plumbing community engaged with the health community and the health inspector officials in your area is key. We need to advocate for increased collaboration between the building officials and health officials in our area, because only through a combination of those two professions working together to address emerging pathogen growth in plumbing systems will our risk mitigation strategies be successful. To help address the unintended consequences of water efficiency and other water-related research needs, it's important to advocate directly to the appropriate water governmental entities. In the U.S., IAPMO's had a good story to tell. As far back as 2010, we started a concerted effort to work with the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the U.S., NIST. It's part of the Department of Commerce in the U.S. Repeatedly, we called on NIST to focus, among other things, the development of a new water pipe sizing method that takes into account today's lower water consumption use patterns. We took advantage of a report that was being issued by the National Institute of Building Sciences in the US. And part of the charter of NIBS, Building Sciences, is to write a report every year, an annual report that's delivered directly to the President of the United States and to Congress. So when they asked for volunteers to help write this report at NIST, we thought that was a great opportunity, a great opportunity to write about advocating directly to the President and to Congress. Wow, that's pretty powerful. And we did that year after year. It wasn't until 2008 that we started to get traction. It took that long. And interestingly, when we started to get traction, it occurred under the Trump administration, where we thought, my goodness, we thought we would not be able to get on their radar screen at all. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. But certainly, it's a great opportunity. And never miss an opportunity to address water when you can have a government entity turn their attention to it. So the hard part now begins. As a result of that report, NIST and the EPA had a combined workshop to address a prioritization of research needs for plumbing systems. That report's going to be in draft form, issued for those of us who participated in the process any day now. I actually expected to see it already. We'll be commenting it, and it'll be issued shortly thereafter. We'll use that report as part of our advocacy efforts going forward. So when we do get an output from a government entity, remember to make hay with it. This is a great way to get the attention of folks that still need to be spoken to and have water needs be put on their radar screen. Now, the hard part is getting the money, isn't it? And, you can advocate it, you can get the report, but it's still going to require a concerted effort to go in front of the right folks. In our case, at the American Congress, would be the Appropriations Committee. We'll be working to get in front of those folks, and we'll be using that report to help get funding to address certain research needs and getting the results of that research put into place in the built environment. Switching a little bit now towards water scarcity. Every inhabited continent is impacted by water scarcity, no more so than here in Australia, as has been pointed out several times on the conference. And water scarcity results, from two distinct conditions, really. There's physical water scarcity that exists simply due to inadequate water supplies. And then there's economic water scarcity that exists due to a lack of infrastructure or funding to deliver that water or to keep that water safe in buildings. And I think what we're seeing in developed nations is a kind of a combination of those in certain areas, where here in Australia, for example, you have indeed by very nature water scarcity, but you also have a resulting of a little bit of inattention to these issues over the years, that now we're playing catch up a little bit to try to address those concerns. And so it's a lot of times it's a combination of both the water, the water scarcity and the economic water scarcity that combine to create the problems. And if you take the two of them into combination, half the world's population still suffers from water scarcity to varying degrees. And that number's only going to get bigger. Climate change is certainly making our jobs more difficult. Dealing with increased periods of drought, severe storms, and flooding will further impact water supplies. There's no doubt about it. And it looks like that condition is going to continue to get worse. One of the impacts of climate change is that concentrations of water vapor continue to increase in our atmosphere as the climate warms due to the rapid increase in the saturation of water vapor in our atmosphere due to temperature. It is creating a feedback loop, because water vapor is a very dominant greenhouse gas. So this is going to continue to manifest itself, and we need to take steps to aggressively deal with climate change. And believe me, we are advocating for this very strongly in the United States, along with our partners in the U.S. We understand the challenges that this presents with various aspects of our government and other governments as well. It's important that we recognize those political those political realities as well. When dealing with them, it's easy to advocate for water scarcity. That plays very well. But sometimes when you're advocating to folks and you know that they have a problem with the terms climate change or the word green or the word sustainability, don't use them. Talk about the water scarcity. Talk about water safety when you talk to that aspect of the government. You remember, you need them. You need them to approve your projects. You need them to provide the funding that you need. So don't go there and alienate them talking about climate change if you know it's going to turn them off right off the bat. Be a little smart. Don't forget to talk up World Plumbing Day. It's a great opportunity for us. We need to make hay with that. And it's a way for all of us to advocate collectively for something at one point during the year when all of our combined voices throughout the world can say with a singular voice how important this vital industry really is to all of us. So yeah, climate change is making our job more difficult. No doubt about it. Oops, went the wrong way. So talking about some new tools in our toolbox, it's important to walk arm in arm with our manufacturers. We have many outside in the hallway. These folks are heavily invested in helping solve these problems. Walk hand in hand with our manufacturers. They help provide the solutions that will address these issues. They have invested interest in doing so, and that's fine. Share what you know. Get involved with the standards writing communities to get these technologies into the built environment. It's a great way for all of us to advocate in a way that's often overlooked. Speak at conferences like this. Another great way for all of us, share what you know. If there's one advocacy issue I can point out to that's been universally successful, it's that of workforce development. You can't talk about workforce development, or politicians are tripping over themselves these days. The message has been very well delivered. They all got it. Now the question is, what can we do better to make it happen? Two things I could point to. One is engage youngsters at an earlier level, even in the latter primary school years. Talk about the students about the money. These folks need to understand this. Often I hear, folks when we talk about workforce development, they're talking about the need to engage because we need their work. We need them to engage. But these folks need to know that they're going to get into a trade that's going to provide them with a very dignified way of life for themselves and their family, as well as entering a very noble profession indeed. I like that. I saw this on Facebook. This. From UA Local 400. It's exactly the type of information that we need to provide. This lets the folks know that, hey, if I do decide to get into plumbing, I'm going to have a successful career. I believe that the most important thing, this was talked a little bit about yesterday, was bringing young women into the profession. This is indeed a great potential, an untapped potential for us. I think that the number was 2% so far here in Australia. I'd be surprised if it was that high in the States. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm sure it's not a very big number. But there's good stories to tell. One thing that you can speak to when you advocate to women about getting into the plumbing profession is that there's no gender pay gap. This is a big thing in the news right now. Women are getting paid, anywhere from 70 to 80 or whatever percent of those of their male counterparts. That does not exist in the plumbing trades. You get the same salary as what the guys get. What a great point to make. Women are very happy in their career choice in the plumbing industry. Another good point to make. Have them talk to women in the trades. This is one way to address it. And in developing nations, especially in nations that practice Islam predominantly, there's a problem because women that are alone in a home cannot have a male plumber in the home alone with them. In these areas, think of the opportunity for women in these developing nations to work in domestic applications to make sure that these homes are more efficient and they're not losing water through leakage. Great demand there. So I need to wrap up. I hope I've been able to convince a few of attendees here to advocate in different ways, whatever, and I'd like to hear from you about some of the things I didn't have time to touch on that may have been effective for you. Now more than ever, we need to play a role in helping address our water safety and plumbing problems. And when our voices are joined collectively, folks, that's what advocacy is all about. Together we can do incredible things. So thank you all for your attention today, and again, please come up and speak to me later on, and hope to learn about some of your advocacy efforts as well. Thank you.